Ladies and gentlemen, when agriculture's top leaders need cutting-edge insight into new technologies, they turn to Chad Colby. As the founder and principal of Colby AgTech, Chad partners with farmers, companies, and government agencies to unlock the potential of emerging tech in agriculture. A passionate advocate for unnamed aerial systems, Chad was named one of Twitter's 20 people to follow in the commercial drone industry. From his roots on a central Illinois farm to his time in Los Angeles earning his pilot's license, Chad's journey is fueled by a deep love for technology and aviation. In 2013, he launched agtechtalk.com to share the latest in ag technology, and in 2015, he founded Colby AgTech to expand his reach. From speaking on Capitol Hill to presenting at major conferences worldwide, Chad's expertise has made a significant impact across the industry. Please join me in welcoming the visionary behind Colby AgTech, Chad Colby.
Well, first of all, good afternoon. It's always a pleasure to come and talk to producers and the fine folks here at Farm Credit and talk about the latest in technology. And I'm going to warn you, there'll be parts of this presentation that'll be really comfortable in your chair. There's going to be other parts of the presentation that you're going to think, that's absolutely nuts. And I'm going to try to put you somewhere in the middle. I get asked a lot, what do you do? So for me, my wife is here. I appreciate her being with me here. I do a weekly tech segment on This Week in Agribusiness with Max Armstrong and Mike Pearson. That's been going on a long time now. I've been doing stuff with them for over 10 years. I also work in the marketing space in a bunch of different capacities, including sharing technology at events like this. But most of the photos that you'll see here we're taking this year. Some stuff is maybe some stories from years past, but I do spend a fair amount of time in equipment. That picture in the upper right-hand corner, I've got a good friend of mine. I don't want to say that bribes me, but asks very kindly to help run a sprayer every year. So I get over 10, 15, 20,000 acres a year in a sprayer and had a great time this last year testing a lot of big new combines. But my real job that supports our family, I'm the marketing director for a equipment manufacturer in Central Illinois, and we produce a lot of things for the aggregate industry. One of the coolest things is we make a high-frequency screen. You can see it up in the right-hand corner. That screen's AgLime, believe it or not, which is a lot of fun. I think when you talk about technology, I think the biggest challenge for all of you in the room, wherever you are on the spectrum, it doesn't matter. Dad, grandpa, grandma, mom and dad, even your son or daughter from college, is I think it's hard and at times maybe even impossible to keep up. And, it goes more than the cell phone. It goes more than auto steer now. We're going to talk a lot about a lot of different spectrums today in that space. One of my biggest pet peeves, though, is good information. And when I tell you that, it's because I think it's incredibly hard, wherever you are in the spectrum, to get good information that's relevant to your farm gate. And, things like this really, look at this. This is from a news agency. A Boeing 777 will struggle to maintain altitude once the fuel tanks are empty. Wow. Okay. Thanks a lot, right? But I think the hard part is understanding that things change. I'm in my mid-50s for age, and I remember all those first steps of technology. A lot of these companies you see up here aren't in the capacity they were years ago, or they're not even here now. Things you wouldn't even actually believe. And I struggle with it because the hard part is it's not about measuring. This is a great quote. Don't measure yourself by what you've accomplished, but by what you should have accomplished with your ability. And that's the hour of this presentation. And I mean that wholeheartedly, because there's a lot of technology that's disruptive. Things that, quite frankly, you're not going to see in Fargo for a long time. Oh, but by the way, this truck's running in China right now. Right now. Now, is it going to work in Fargo when it's 30 below? Probably not, okay? But that's not my point. My point is there are things happening globally that none of us in this room maybe even know about or can even fathom. Is anybody familiar with what China's doing with ports right now? Anyone? They have automated their port systems in such a way that it's allowed manufacturing to do so much more production. Facilities like you see right here, they handle more containers than we do in the United States, and that's one port with 75% less labor. There's nobody there. It's 100% autonomous. And most of us don't even know that exists. This one opened 4 years ago. It's insane. And 20 minutes on YouTube, it'll scare you to death on how far along they've advanced. And you think, well, what kind of technology can you relate to that in the U.S.? Show of hands, who in this room has drove a Tesla? Come on, somebody has to. Awesome. This will be a great story for the other 98% of the room. That means the rest of you haven't done it. And what I mean by that is, if you have not witnessed the technology that's in those automobiles, then you don't understand what I'm talking about. And it's unbelievable. Go to YouTube, grab a video like this. It's 8 minutes long. I am not going to play it all. But I can tell you, this is not a fugazi. This is not pie in the sky. I'm not at the bar telling you a story. This is a fact about how well this technology works. I thought it was pretty cool. Recently, they announced a new summons feature. Literally, from this room, you could summons your car from the parking lot and go to the front door and be outside waiting for you, warm. That's here now. It'll go around a dog. It'll go around a shopping cart. It'll drive around a parking lot with snow, with signs at dark. It can do it all automatically right now, and most of us don't even know that. And when you talk about crazy things, please tell me I'm not the only one that's paid attention to things that are going on in Texas or in Florida. Because what's happening, friends, is an understatement of craziness of how far they've come in such a short time. This was a couple days ago. This was a Starship test launch. Obviously, as some of you might know, they had a rapid deceleration, or the main part of it failed over Turks and Caicos and went in pieces in the ocean. But the reality is, though, the booster stage came back all by itself. And you guys have seen this with the chopsticks that pick it up. Are you kidding me right now? That's real. That's not fake. Think about that. This stuff was mere a thought 5 or 6 years ago. And when you start talking about real challenges that affect some of you in this room, because I do have several friends in this part of the country, what about internet coverage? Come on. Does anybody in here have Starlink? Come on, there's got to be a few hands. Absolutely. Starlink works. We got it on our house. Took me 18 months to get it because I'm a half a mile one way or the other from high-speed internet. We were bouncing internet off a local grain elevator, and it was terrible. Switched to Starlink. It's been great. If you haven't seen it, works very good. Here's the crazy part. Do you guys know that a year ago, John Deere announced they're going to have internet on their combines, wherever that combine is? Guess where they're getting their internet? They're getting it from Starlink. They announced a few days ago the system's called JD Boost. And guess what? On that picture in the upper right-hand corner, you can see the Starlink antenna up there. They're about to roll out a portable version of that. So getting internet works anywhere. Here's the deal. I understand the internet and computers and all of that can be really taxing. And these darn things, right? We're going to talk about them. Don't worry. I'll get there. But the reality is, I remember sitting at the kitchen table with my mom and dad having a heated debate when this edition of Farm Journal came out in '83. It was in February of '83. And you know what the reason was? I was trying to get my dad to buy in to the fact that, hey, listen, Dad, for $2,000, we can buy an IBM-based computer. Oh, by the way, this is before Windows on a computer, not to age myself. And he's like, well, how's that going to benefit the farm? I'm like, Dad, you know what? I can write some programs. We can do our book work, all this fun stuff. He's like, that's crazy. You know, obviously, he didn't do it at the time. But when you fast forward just a few years later for Christmas, that was my desk in my bedroom and the first computer that my parents bought me. It was $79. And by God, I had the little printer too. So my dad must have had a good year on the farm. I got a printer with my computer as well. And again, this is no Windows. And all through that time frame of computers, you start to understand it has to have a practical application. So my desk today is maybe a little bit over the top. I've got a laptop there. I've got 3 screens. That's pretty normal. But what if I told you that things are going to be changing faster than you'll believe? If you haven't been to an Apple store recently, I encourage you to do this and go look at Vision Pro. My wife is sitting here with me. She so graciously joined me. I think she was pleasantly surprised that when I went and tried it, I did not buy it. Because for me, it's just not quite there yet. But it is the most impressive thing that you will witness. They literally take your glasses, they put them into a machine to make sure the subscription is right with that system they put on your head. And everything you see that this gentleman doing in a demo, I was doing with it, and it was unbelievable. Now, I'm not 100% sure that my wife and I need to put those 2 things on and watch a movie. That seems a little weird to me. So I'm not sure about the application, but this stuff is coming. And here's where you can start to see trends of things that are making impacts that maybe you don't know about. So who in this room are pilots? I can't be the only one that flies an airplane. Guaranteed, I can't see well with the lights, but there's probably 5, 6 of us. Pretty normal. For years, I've flown airplanes for maybe 25 years, but you may not know, you can take an old airplane like this one, the last one I had, you can throw some electronics in it, and the electronics are phenomenal. And a lot of the new airplanes today have systems that many of you may not have seen before. This is a system from Garmin called Autoland. What do you think it does? Completely operates the aircraft. Friends, I mean 100%, if I'm incapacitated in a single pilot operation, the airplane will completely take over, I guess, or if my wife doesn't want me to land, she can push the button, and it calls ATC, it checks weather, it finds an airport, it does everything, it does auto throttles, auto brakes, takes you right to the airport and lands you. Guys, this has been out for several years. That's been my biggest challenge in agriculture. It's been for years. You can have the coolest, neatest technology in the world. In ag, it's going to take 7 to 10 years for it's mainstream. This stuff is working in our airspace today. So when you start talking about automation and all these things that are coming down the train, there's no reason to get nervous. I remember this day very vividly. It is my favorite slide by far. My dad is the short little fella in the back behind the 2+2. Bob Kenny, Bud Nordstrom, Jim Covert, and this contraption of just nightmare behind was going to revolutionize farming. We're going to do everything in one pass. And don't worry, that 2+2 is not our family farm's 2+2. Our dealers so graciously let us use that on the farm. We did not buy that because we all know its history. But the reality is that tool failed miserably. And my dad taught me at a young age, bless his heart, he's been gone for quite a few years now, is this statement. If you're making a pass across the field and you're not changing something, whether it's fertilization or seed rate, then how do you know what to do in the future? You got to try something different. And the key is this. This is just one of my favorite lines. I'm a big John Wooden fan. Failure is not fatal, but failure to change might be. And I mean that. I totally mean that. Do you remember big steps on your farm? I remember when our family got a planter just like this. Now, I took this picture about 2 years ago with a good friend of mine. He's getting up in his age. He's got maybe 500 acres. He's about to retire, but he kept his old planter. And I got in and I rode with John, and I just laughed. Because I remember as a 13-year-old when we got that monitor on our planter, and oh my gosh, we had halfway disconnect. We could not plant on one half of the planter. That was the coolest thing ever. My dad thought he was Muhammad Ali having that kind of technology. And today, I think the 10-ton gorilla in our room, in our space in agriculture, the next generation, so the next 20 years for sure, is that big ugly word, automation. Okay? But I got good news and bad news. Automation isn't new. Can anybody tell me what this picture is? Any hints? Any ideas? Anybody like the Chicago Bears? I guess they're undefeated this year, unlike some teams. But the reality is this, is that Soldiers Field, this was the World's Fair, and McCormick was showing a remote-controlled tractor in the World's Fair. And we all sit here and see this and go, oh, there's no way. There's no way that's going to work. Remember when Case IH showed this solution, right? Obviously, they don't retail that yet, right? But they showed a a scenario where this could work, right? And obviously, there's automation all around us. Who has automation on their combine now? Come on, please, somebody raise their hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, there's 5 of you. I spoke at an event about 3 years ago when automation was out from all the major brands. The problem was it was about a $25,000 option. Now it's kind of included on a new combine. So the rest of you that didn't raise your hand, the next time you buy a new combine, it's already going to have it on there. And the reality was, I can tell you from this story really quick, was I asked a room of 150 of some of the biggest growers in the country who had automation on their combine. And of the group of 150, 30% of the room, in my best judgment, had bought a new combine. And of the 30%, so 40-ish people, 2 people bought automation. I asked the same group, how many of you bought 4-wheel drive? About 80% did. I said, okay, so you decided to spend $20,000 on 4-wheel drive and not automation. Okay, that's fine. But here's the deal. The biggest thing I can tell you about automation today works. It's outstanding. It's phenomenal. These photos right here, this was when I was testing some stuff with Case years ago with automation, and it is phenomenal. And automation is the first step when your combine's automation to do autonomous things with combines, or more things that are done with AI, where it's adjusting on the go. And I'm going to show you some of that in a minute. This winter, I shouldn't say this winter, this past fall, I had the opportunity to run some of the newer combines from C&H, and that includes New Holland. And never in my life have I run combines with that kind of capacity. That's just the best way I can tell you. To sit in a combine with a 16-row head doing 8, 9, 10,000 bushels an hour, thinking, whoa. Where right next to you there's a new Class 8 combine that's doing 4,500, and you're doing twice as much throughput. What that technology is doing with automation today is phenomenal. And automation, we're just at the start of that. There's companies out there now like Sabanto, been out for years. This is the first time I saw it, was in, believe it or not, 2019, south of Springfield, Illinois, and they brought me down so I could see this. And you know what this tractor did? Planted 160 acres all by itself. I sat there and watched it. It works. They're doing operations now all over the country. Now, it was cute to see. I personally like the sandbag on the seat. That was kind of humorous. But the reality is those systems work. And if you advance to the last couple years, this is Raven's autonomous system, which if you don't know, Raven now is part of the C&H family. But they have a system that you can put on a tractor and make it operate fully autonomously. Inside the cab, it's not messed up. It looks completely normal. Obviously, you can see it's got an array of sensors around the tractor to use, but it worked flawlessly. You don't hear about tractors acting silly with autonomous stuff because they've built in the safeties to do that. If you haven't seen this technology, you need to do it. Now, I'm not going to be the first person to sit up here and tell you that John Deere is not going to make their goal. At CES show here a few weeks ago, they announced, it's not a secret, that their goal is corn, soybeans, wheat, plant it, spray it, harvest it, fully autonomously by 2030. Now, obviously, I believe some of us like to run equipment, okay? I believe some of us like to plant. So maybe there's different parts of that autonomous system that you'll utilize, but the reality is they're doing some things right now that you don't even think about. Look at this. In the lower right-hand corner, that is a previous year's yield map, or it can be aerial data from like a drone or satellite imagery. And what they're doing now, which by the way is this fall, is it will have predictive automation. So that means if you're coming over the rise, well, you guys don't have those here because your fields are flat, but if you're coming through an area of a field where you know the yield goes one way or the other, the combine is going to sense that and know it before it comes, use the camera system on the top of it to look ahead, like you see in this picture here, look in the lower left corner. It sees the density of the crop, and guess what it's going to do? The same thing you would do if you have the command arm. What would you do? You're going to accelerate because the crop's not as good, or you're going to slow down and do it for you. It'll adjust the combine on the fly. That's pretty cool automation. And certainly I cannot be the only one that's seen the camera automation around the auto steer stuff with crop, right? That's getting pretty popular now, where it sees the rows. Obviously, it knows where to steer so you don't drive over the crops. This is pretty neat if you haven't seen it. They have that on pretty much everything now. You can get it. It's pretty neat stuff, and it works. I've run it for like 3 years now. It doesn't not work. It works all the time. My biggest pet peeve has been probably the last 6 or 7 years is just how hard it is to run the technology. The folks at Kinsey are the first ones that made a monitor that was somewhat normal. And what I mean by that is, how big's the manual that comes with a new iPhone? Well, there isn't one, right? Because I could hand this phone to any one of you in this room and you could hit the phone, dial a phone number, and call. But if you're a John Deere combine or John Deere planter guy and I put you in a red tractor, after you start it and make the tractor move, that's probably as far as you're going to go. You don't even know how to unfold it, let alone run the planter, right? Because it's not intuitive. And the manufacturers have finally started getting better with that. The next generation of, or current generation, I should say, of monitors, especially John Deere's, has started to get better with that. But I think the driving force of our technology today comes with these darn things. Comes with our smart devices, right? And this, I'm not going to ask you to raise your hands. You guys are all wide awake today. But I can promise you this, 80% of this room or more uses Apple. It's been that way since I've been speaking for 10 or 15 years. That number never seems to change. I promised my dad, this is really cute, I bought that Motorola brick phone, and my dad was livid. Because I was with my father when he got his first bag phone, which, by the way, was a huge deal, because all of a sudden we didn't have to drive 7 miles to town to make a phone call on some of the farms we had, which I'm assured that many of you were in that same boat. But when I bought the brick phone and told my dad what it cost, he's like, I hope you're keeping that thing forever for that. And by God, I still have it, okay? So I'm making my father proud. But guess what I also have? I kept my first iPhone. It's in the box, and it still works. That's a picture of it sitting right there. And I think the reality is what you can do on smartphones is crazy. So you're going to have to bear with me here for just a couple minutes, because there's other things in that technology wave that I think some of you are missing. How many of you have a smartwatch? Come on. Okay, here's the crazy part. There's 10 people. I guess 11, count my wife. I know she's wearing hers. There's so many things from a health standpoint that this goofy little $300 thing does. If you have any kind of health issues, it needs to be on your wrist. And I'll tell you a really, really quick story. You can imagine I could do this for several hours, but I was speaking at an event in Florida. It was a marketing conference, and a farmer friend and his wife were there, and they said, hey, let's go to dinner. I just flew in, was staying one night, leaving the next day, went out to dinner. We're sitting having dinner, and my watch keeps saying breathe. Come on, guys, I'm sitting at dinner. And Jeremy's laughing at me. He's like, why are you looking at your watch? I'm like, I don't know. It keeps telling me to breathe. What? I don't even know what that, what? Like, what are you talking about? This is like 3 years ago now, maybe 4. It was before COVID. Anyway, lo and behold, we're sitting there, and I said, gosh, I wonder what my heart rate is. And I check it, and it's running like 160. And I'm sitting there. I feel 100% fine. I'm like, well, that's somewhat concerning. That's not normal. So we go back to where we're staying. I'll make this story a little shorter. Get back to the room. I'm by myself. Don't turn the television on. Take my watch off. Put it on the charger. Go to bed. Wake up in the morning like I always do to put my half a day of work in. It was like 5 a.m. Took a shower. Got ready in the watch the whole time sitting over there in the corner. I put my watch on. I'm getting ready to go downstairs. I have to do one of these, give one of these presentations. I put the watch on, and I am not down the hallway. And my watch says what? Breathe. I'm like, come on. I look at my watch, and it's still running 150. So my dad died of a heart attack, and I'm thinking, wow, okay, maybe I need to make a couple phone calls. So I go downstairs. I give my presentation, which was really good. And I got done. Didn't mention this to anybody. Jeremy was there after. He's like, hey, you still need to breathe? And I said, yeah, it's telling me to breathe. So I'm trying to decide if I want to be stuck in Florida or go home. So I go to the airport. I fly back to Bloomington. Get off the airport, and I'm like, fine, okay. So I go to the vet or go to the ER and walk in, and what's wrong? And I'm like, well, my heart rate doesn't seem to idle down. And I'll make a long story a lot shorter. After 2 days and 2 sets of tests, and they do some stuff, and it finally idles back down. And they can't figure out what happened to this day. They don't know why. But I will tell you this. There was an Indian lady that came to visit me in the hospital before I left. Really nice lady. She came in with a name this long, and she was from Chicago, but had drove down after seeing the 2 sets of test results and wanted to talk to me. And when she came in and told me that, I was by myself in my room, and she's telling me this, and I was like, well, this doesn't sound encouraging at all. Like, well, maybe we have a problem. And she said, I want to know one thing. How in the world did you know this? And I said, what do you mean? She said, how'd you know? She said, because that's where the problem starts. And I go, what are you talking about? Well, if you're running 160 and then you overdo it from there, then you have other problems, strokes and heart attacks and all kinds of other things. And I said, how? She goes, how did you know that? Because you didn't feel it. And I go, I didn't feel it at all. I said, I had my watch on. And she says, what do you do? And I told her, and she goes, you know that story that you just told me? You need to tell that every time you're on stage. And that's the reality. There's a lot you can do from this stuff. I want to share some information, and I double-checked this 2 days ago. This has not changed. Do you wear a watch? What about a smartwatch? It's the same stats it's been since 2020. The numbers haven't changed, okay, in 5 years. There's basically 50% of you-ish that don't wear a watch. There's 13% of you that wear a normal watch, and there's 32% of us that do. Here's what I would encourage you. If you have anybody with a health concern, spend the money. It's a couple $100. Lots of things we can do with our phones. That's not a secret, right? You know, whether it's an infrared camera or getting analytics in the field, all of those things are key. The thing that I like most about the cell phones today is the access that you have to communication. That's the key. I was at the Consumer Electronics Show at Got Done in Vegas a couple years ago. Frustrated beyond belief. At 4:30 in the morning, I'm getting ready to leave the hotel to go to the airport to head back. I get a text from Southwest that says, sorry, your flight's canceled. And they had booked me on the flight the next day. I'm like, no, I got kids. I need to get home. So I went to my computer because I'm pretty good at travel, as you folks would appreciate. I'm like, that's fine. I'll grab another flight. Couldn't find one. There was some weather, whatever all the problems were. And it said on Southwest flight, sorry, call the 800 number. So I called the 800 number. I was on hold for an hour and 45 minutes, sitting in the room with my bags packed going, this is ridiculous. I went to Twitter and did this. Hey, Southwest Air. On hold for over 2 hours, some system errors. Can you help me? I got a private message from them that said, what flight are you on? I told them. And I said, can I go through Denver to Chicago on these 2 flights? About 30 seconds later, I got a beep, beep, and rerouted all my flights. I never talked to a person. Was done in 2 minutes. Well, that's interesting, right? Upgrading phones. I'm not going to ask the group either. It's basically like this. There's a third of you in the room that do it every year. There's another third that's every 2 years, which is what I like. And then there's a third of you that need to stop at the Verizon store when you leave here. Love you guys. It's the truth. And I'm going to show you why. I promise you, there will be probably 3 to 6 of you that'll go buy a new phone on your way home when I show this to you. This is from Geekbench. This is the performance stats of new phones today. Obviously, the big red arrow at the top is the newest, latest dog in the fight. That's the 16, right? It's midlife right now. I'll show you that on another stat. But the reality is when you get back to the second arrow, that's an iPhone 11. So I'm being honest with you. If you're running a 14 and above, a 13 and above, you're good. But I'm telling you, friends, go look at the numbers. If you grab an iPhone 11, the performance of that phone overall is about a 1700 rating, and a new one's 3400. So it's twice the performance. So if the Pioneer seed dealer said, hey, Chad, we got a new variety of corn for you. It's 103-day corn, and we've been doing yield checks on it. Yields from 652 bushel instead of the 210 you've been doing. What would you do? Give me a pallet of that. By God, let's try it. But it frustrates me to no end when I crawl up in a cab with guys and I see phones with buttons on the front of them while you're in your you-know-what kind of tractor or combine. You have to trust me. I understand being a good person, okay? I do. And I've learned at my house that, you know what? Okay, fine. When I get a new phone, I probably need to get one for my wife too, because she's around me too much and she likes the best of the best. And I appreciate that. But to me, it's the first step to running your operation, to having the latest technology. Now, to get you guys up to speed really fast, You've got the 16 Pro, the 16, the ES, and it's midlife. So if you were going to buy one, now's the right time, would be right now, in the next 60 days. If not, then honestly, you wait till September and get the 17 because you know it's going to be better yet. But don't do this. Don't get to the 17 and go, I'll just wait for the 18. Because the jumps are way too big. And tablets are the same way. Depending on where you are in that realm, tablets probably have even more of a jump, depending on if you're using a tablet or not. It's the same thing. Spend a little money, upgrade that system. There's a lot of other great technology in ag that maybe you guys haven't seen or had experience with. You know, there's guys at home that are using electrocution now to kill weeds, which is absolutely unbelievable. There's a lot of guys spending a lot of money and a lot of time doing what? Spoon feeding the crop. And if you haven't experimented with that on your farm, please, all I'm saying is consider it. If you've been doing the same fertility program for 5 years and having great success, that is not a free pass to next year not go, hey, Dad, let's make an extra round here with 50% more, whatever you're putting on. Let's see the results. Let's try something different, right? And, you know, maybe you don't need to go to strip till or strip freshening like you see here, but there's a lot of guys starting to figure out the ways to make the balance sheet work better, make more profit. You know, one of the things about technology is this. It's not necessarily about spending money. It's all about getting a return. You know what? Why does this frustrate me? Because there's not one of you operators out here that could not afford a new phone upgrade. This isn't that expensive. You're just afraid of it until you get it, because you'll get the return in that. These next 3 slides are some of my favorite, and I've tried so hard to take them out, and I just can't do it. This is a friend of mine in Central Illinois, farms about 2,500 acres. His name is Matt Foes, and his entire goal has been highest yields, lowest input costs, period. It's not newest combines. It's not any of that. It's most return, period. Matt spoon-feed nitrogen. You could see it here. I promised Matt when we were taking out a plot a few years ago and he's spilling corn, I said, are you serious right now? We're taking out a plot and you're spilling corn. I am going to show that video everywhere. He's laughing at me. We're having fun. But Matt told me this one time and it just hammered into my head. You can't widget yourself into better yields. You can't buy some new widget and put on your planner and expect that to translate every single time right to your bottom line. There's too many factors. But the reality is, okay, you're not farming the land, you're growing a plant, right? And these next 2 slides are my all-time favorites, and the story goes with it is you just can't even make this up. He called me one day, he goes, where are you at today? And I said, I'm 30 miles from you. He's like, you heading this way? I said, sure, I'll stop. He's like, can you grab me a cup of coffee? I'm like, okay. So I stopped by Casey's, got him a cup of coffee. This is harvest time, by the way. And he said to me, I go, what's wrong? And Matt goes, well, I've got some down corn. And I went, whoa. And he sent me that video. How do I go back? Oh, look, I got that out of sequence. So, okay, perfect. Basically, Matt was in the field on the left. That looks really good here compared to the corn on the right, but he pushed the crop too far and it fell down. And he's like, hey, and when you're getting coffee, can you do me a favor? I'm like, so what's that? He's like, why don't you grab us a case of beer? I go, Matt, it's 10 o'clock in the morning. He goes, you have no idea what you're going to get when you come up here. Did you guys see that? Did you see his yield? This is dry land corn. That's flat as a pancake. We can only harvest one direction. And it's doing 310. Now, did he push it too hard? You bet. Was it a nightmare? You bet. Do you know what the yield difference was between that and the crooked row corn across the way? Because we went and yield checked it. 73 bushel. And the challenge I tell you in this room and what I tell everybody is you got to push those limits. And these darn things here are the best segue ever into pushing limits. Who's got a drone? Come on. Wow. 6 of you. 7. Okay. Cool. There's a lot of things going on in that space. I'm not going to jump into all the regulations. If you have questions, there's a plethora of that information out there. You can get a license to fly now. It's relatively simple. and you can do crazy things with drones. I've been very blessed because of my aviation career and agriculture. I jumped into the drone space when it began, right out of the gate, and spent ridiculous amounts of money understanding how this works. Been fortunate enough to have been to Capitol Hill and try to defend us in the world of understanding how aviation works. And I say that with all respect to everybody in the room, but outside of the 4 or 5 of us that have a pilot's license, no offense, please don't take any, you don't have a clue what's going on in the airspace because you don't own it, you're not in control of it, either is your local sheriff. Nobody's in control of the airspace. The feds are, they always have, they always will, and that's the way it is. So you got to figure that out. As far as how it works, you can learn more if you don't. You can go to Know Before You Fly. The FAA's got a plethora of stuff, and I'll just leave you with a great saying from John Wayne. Life is hard. It's even harder if you're stupid, and that has to do with, well, Chad, can I do this with a drone? Well, no, you probably shouldn't go fly it near an airport unless you want to get in trouble, right? So I'm talking about the practical application of flying this over your farm. And as these pictures go by, these are scouting examples that I've taken here over the last several years of a drone that is very similar to the one I'm holding in my hand. That happens to be lighter than a can of Coke, okay? Costs about $1,500. Anybody in this room can fly it. Auto land, auto takeoff, has sonar on it, can see stuff, takes great pictures, and it's $1,500 and anybody can do it. And I struggle with this a lot because there's also not one of you in this room that not only can't fly it, that can't afford not to have that box sitting behind the seat in your truck. Because what kind of time savings is this? Where do I start? Tile after a long rain. That's a tornado, believe it or not. Where do you want me to start? Inspections on pivots. You know, do I want to walk out and see what's failed on my pivot, or do I want to fly with my drone first before I drive out? Do I want to check nozzles? Do I want to do an inspection on a grain facility? I could sit up here all day long and show you all kinds of stuff. But the reality is, if you're not in that space, it's because you're not comfortable with it. And this stuff is easy. And when I say easy, I'm doing good because I got 5 minutes to go and I probably have 20 minutes of stuff to say, so I got to talk fast. But what I want to show you is this. I pushed one button in here. I'm joking, by the way. I don't have that many slides left. But I turned on the controller, which was a button click. I pushed this twice. That's going to start. It's starting up. And in, I don't know, 30 seconds, 40 seconds, I don't know, I'm feeling kind of lazy right now. But if I take this controller here, once this boots up, and I go, oh yeah, okay, fine. You know what, I don't want to impress you guys, so I'm just going to have it do it on its own. I'm not even driving it. It just took off on its own. I did auto takeoff. I could fly it around, right? Take pictures, do my thing, and go, oh man, I don't know if I want to land this. This seems too complicated for me. I'm going to push this button right here that says land, and guess what? I just took pictures of my cornfield. I'm going home. Everybody here can do this. And that's really the key, right? Is it's not difficult. And the reason why I bring that to your attention, because I think it's important to understand what you do next with drones. Some of you that raised your hand, I'm sure you've seen this. Real-time analytics on your controller, on an iPad, in the field in real time. Oh, and by the way, this year, you can easily do stand counts in your field too. In real time with a drone like this. Now, you're going to spend a little more money. I'll give you that. This is $1,500. You're going to spend $4,500 to get to this level. No problem. I understand that. But you can also go out in the field, and you can get stand counts like you can see right here. This is a screen recording. And here in, whatever, 20 seconds, you're going to see it on the screen. It's going to land. It's going to ask you if you want to upload the data. I just did a small area there. Do you want to upload it? It uploads them to the cloud. And in 10 minutes later, voila, look what you have. Stand counts. Pretty crazy, right? And as far as field analytics, the sky's the limit. This is a 15 versus 30-inch corn plot that we did. Obviously, the image on the left is what you see with your naked eye. On the right is some of the advanced imagery. You can see those areas. In my real job, we do things at the next level because I'm fortunate enough that my boss lets me kind of do what I do best. And we've got the most state-of-the-art systems that you can have. And this one is, we've got RTK, and it's big. You can see that. And what this one allows us to do is go out and get very, very high-resolution data, and then we can 3D model and build stuff from this. So if I took this to, say, your grain leg, I don't need a tape measure to pull any measurements. I can take that system here. I can go out and fly like this. The software will stitch all the images together like doing a puzzle, if you like that kind of thing at Grandma's. And when you're done, you can throw it into AutoCAD and pull the measurements within a ½ inch, and I never got my shoes dirty. We do this stuff all the time, and it's fantastic. And obviously, this is in a quarry, but it would be the same thing at home on the farm. The other thing I want to share is this. Anybody heard of drone in the box? You know what I mean by that? That means you drop off a drone, it's in a box, and that can operate in snow. Not sure how it does in 30 below. That might be fun to see. But it's heated and cooled, has cameras, has its own weather station, and when you need it, up in that right corner, you can run it fully autonomously from anywhere in the world. Done it, have some systems in action. This was at my house doing some testing, and you would have thought I was 12 years old. This is the coolest stuff I'd ever seen. Fully autonomous, I could run it from my phone. So that's a screen recording, and you can see the drone. That's the camera of the drone on the right. The upper left are the cameras on the drone in the box. Watch this thing come down and land on it all by itself and the box close. I've got friends using this system right now. One of them we set up in June. They went back and put it away December like 15th. We never went back to the box after we set it up. It collected data every single week where it was located. Pretty cool stuff. The next thing I want to touch on here before we wrap up some Q&A is weed detection. We're all seeing now the See and Spray technology that's out there. Folks, this isn't new. The first time I saw it was in Australia about 6 years ago, maybe 7. See and Spray, right? More in a small grain setting, but now, of course, you can put this on your sprayer. I was at Precision Planting, I don't know, honey. When was I there? Monday, Tuesday? Tuesday I was there, I guess. And they've got a new vision system. If you haven't seen this, this is really slick because you don't need to spend $700,000 and buy a new sprayer. You can use your old sprayer, and you can add this See and Spray type technology to your existing sprayer at home. It's pretty cool stuff. And of course, I would be doing drones a disservice if we didn't talk about sprayer drones for just a second. Has anybody used a spray drone? Come on, somebody. There's got to be one. One, yes. Okay? Again, that's the thing. That's the thing now. The prices have actually come down. The regulation works. You could easily spray 400 or 500 acres a day per drone. You get a fleet of them together or a swarm. You could do, I got friends doing 200,000 acres a year with drones. Okay? I'm going to leave you guys with this before we go to Q&A. Is this. I put together a little checklist of technology, and I don't know. I think you have to step back, and you have to have a plan on your farm. And God bless some of you, first step is maybe a Verizon store. I get it, okay? But decide what your next step is on your farm. Talk about it with your friends, your family, your neighbors, and work on that, right? The biggest thing that I want from technology is I want it to help me with real-time decisions. That's what I want it to do right now. I want to invest in things that are going to bring me a return right now. Give me some more time back, right? And how does that done? That's done with efficiency. Can one of you tell me that if I think I have a problem on the Johnson quarter section and I pull up with my F-150 or 3/4 ton truck and I take this drone out and fly it around and take 7 pictures and send it to my agronomist, was that easier than walking out in the field? Are you kidding me right now? That's efficiencies, right? The other part of this is you got to set goals with technology. What are we going to do with it, right? And you got to evaluate the process. If you add a round and you add 30% more nitrogen to a round, well, if you don't put flags where it is and tell your dad about it and he goes out and combines it, how are you going to know if it did anything, right? I mean, that's true. But you also have to have a little bit of a different mindset. And the mindset is we got to try something different. You guys have another great opportunity. You've been blessed that in 60 days or whenever it is you get back in the field, you get another opportunity to move the needle again and try something different. I'm going to leave one more story before we get to Q&A because it's epic. This story is so good. It's about I don't know now. It's before COVID. I got a call around Christmas. I've done this in every presentation I've given around the world. There is my cell phone number. And I got a phone call, and I answered my phone. Hello, it's Chad. Yeah, can you hold on a second? Okay, that's how I answered the phone. And he says, yeah, this is Steve from the Apple Store. There's a fella here that is wanting to buy an iPad and a new phone. And he's got your phone number, and he doesn't know what to do. I said, well, this will be fun. The Steve guy at the Apple Store, we picked out his iPad, we picked out his iPhone, we picked out all his stuff for him. I'm sure I spent $3,000 of his money. And I go, Steve, can I talk to the fella again? And I swear to God, this is exactly what I said, and it was awesome. He handed the phone to the farmer. Obviously, he goes, you know what? I was in one of those presentations you were in, and I told my wife, I don't have a clue what to do, but I'm going to call Chad. He's going to tell me what to do. Have a great Christmas. And he hung up the phone. I never even spoke. He's like, thank you so much, and hung up the phone. And one of the biggest things with technology is this, and then we'll take some questions. And I mean this wholeheartedly. You're not alone. And I cannot stress that to you enough. If you're thinking about a drone, you know what, Chad's right. A drone might work, and you don't know anything about drones, then reach out to someone. Reach out to your agronomist or your equipment provider or whoever's in your circle and find somebody who's got a drone and talk to them. Same way with phones. What's the biggest scare about phones? What is it? It's transferring the data over. Do you guys know right now when you buy a new phone, they've got this figured out? You set your new one right here, and you set your old one right here and go, yes, yes, yes. And every single thing that your other phone did goes exactly onto the new one. All your passwords, all your pictures, where your icons, it's all exactly the same. And most of you don't know that. They've fixed that. But that's something that makes you uneasy, right? And that's my point, is reach out. There's a great community of people, especially even in your circle, that'll help you with technology. I know we're great on time. What about it? Is anybody, I know it's a big group. Is there any questions at all that we can, you got some stuff?
Yeah, I got a few online, but yeah, there's going to be a fair amount of time here for questions, so please raise your hand high. We got, again, a couple mics running around. So
yeah,
first one is, I think a common question a lot of us might have is, all this technology is great, but where are we going to find the people to work on it when it breaks? This is already a challenge today, and I feel like it's going to get worse. Please give us your thoughts.
I love that question, and I'll tell you why. I'll give you great examples. I've never had one of these fail. Drones, to be honest with you, an actual problem, unless it's user done. I may have backed one into a building the other day at a demonstration. You know what? I sent it to California. It cost me $112, and it was back in a day or 3 days. Believe me, that is a major concern. Training with new technology is always a problem. You got to get up to speed with it, right? But I think it's important that you guys realize that the new technology that's developed today, they have that in mind. Normally, I'll bring somebody up here that's terribly uncomfortable with drones and have them take off and land and fly it around. They're like, well, I can do this. Well, yes, you can, but you didn't know it. So I think you have to be smart in where you spend your money in technology, but you also have to be somewhat trusting and understand that the companies that make that technology, they know it's hard to use. And it's their job to make the user interface easy enough that you can handle it and service it if something goes wrong. And they've done a pretty good job on that. So that's an outstanding question, whoever sent that in.
So the state of North Dakota has a bill in the legislature this year.
Yeah, I know it is. Yeah.
I think they're going to spend $15 million to replace all their DJI drones.
Yeah.
So what do they think China is getting off the drones? Is it the same as they're getting from Twitter, or what do they think they're doing? And
where's the person I'm talking to? I can't see. Right here.
Is it worth the money?
I would tell you this. I'm going to be as factual as I can with drones, because that's all I've ever done, is just be real honest with you. DJI has 85% of the market in the globe. There's nobody second. Their systems are bar none the best because they do everything in-house. That's number one. Number two, what we do in our space in agriculture, okay? Trust me, there's satellites that can tell, sir, whether your field is corn or soybeans and whether it's standing or laying flat. And there's nothing that this little guy is going to tell China that matters. Now, I understand if your industry is in, you know, nuclear power or something that is definitely different than that. But I struggle in that space a little bit because the reality is going to be is when and if those things happen, okay, federally, that we can't use DJI drones, okay, we're all going to take a 10-year break from drones or 5-year break from drones because there's no second player now. And the ornery thing about the second players in this space, guess where every single one of their components come from, sir? Every single component comes from China. So the same people that say don't buy a DJI sprayer drone and they're selling sprayer drone ABC over here on the left, okay, guess where every single component comes from? Want to guess? China. So there's a lot of talking out of both sides of their mouth there. I'd love for somebody else to step up in the game. I buy these. I don't work for DJI. I buy these just like you would. Right now, I buy these because they're the best and the most reliable. So it's a tough conversation is what it is because there's nothing that China is getting from this that we care about. I mean, you think those tile lines that we saw that you couldn't see from a satellite? Yes, you could. I mean, what are they getting from that picture if they could get the data? And right now, all of these drones have all the privacy set on that none of the data is actually leaving. DJI's proven that to the federal government multiple times. But the reality is you know, your data is very important. I mean, look at all the drama with TikTok on social media, right? I mean, our government agencies haven't been using TikTok for several years. You want to know why? Because they know that it records keystrokes and it does all kinds of stuff. And they know that that's been hacked. And that's why government officials haven't used TikTok and were banned from using it. You guys know that if they put it on your phone and you were a government employee, they actually destroyed the phone and gave you a new one because you could never take it all the way off. There's a lot of stuff behind the scenes with that stuff. So great question. It's a loaded question, and I'm sure I get an F for answering it. But the reality is I don't see an ag. What are they gaining? I mean, seriously, what are they going to gain? So good question, though. I knew it was going to come up.
All right, another one here. Maybe he's loaded as well. I'm not sure. But you talked a lot about the new things in technology, and don't be afraid to try it. What is the biggest game changer that's going to help profitability on my farm with technology?
Yeah, it's awesome. It's definitely automation. And I think that's double-fold because of labor. And the other part of that is, and I'll say it with all due respect to everyone in the room, and that's skilled labor. If you're going to put somebody in your sprayer, in your combine, or in your planter, they better know what they're doing. And I can tell you horror stories till the day is long about people getting in combines and doing really bad things. Not damaging the combine, but lots of grain loss and all kinds of opportunities. I think the biggest thing with automation is using automation to get to the bottom line the fastest. There's some great grain dryer automation. I have it in the slide deck. I didn't show it because I was only speaking for an hour. And if you haven't seen some of that automation, it's phenomenal now on making your grain dryer more efficient, right? Saving gas, drying more, so on and so on and so on. I think you just have to step back and take a hard look at your operation, and maybe it's the opposite. I got a buddy in Canada that raised a ton of cattle. And about 5 years ago, he spent an exorbitant amount of money for a state-of-the-art camera system. Do you know what Ken can do now? He can check on his herd of cattle, and it's a lot. He can check it all from his phone. He's got he's got sensors in the bunks. He can see what they're doing. He's got all kinds of stuff in there, and all that does is let him spend more time at home with his family. And that's how you look at that, right? So there's a lot of ways to pick up efficiency. You have to find that lane for you. If you're the guy whose job is to go check pivots, and the only way you check pivots is to put on your good favorite boots and hike out a half a mile, you're telling me this doesn't pay? You know what I'm saying? So, great question. Yeah.
This one kind of surprises me that this person's virtual, but
Awesome.
probably heading to the Verizon store, I'm thinking. So,
Yeah.
With all this new technology, obviously there has to be some failures. What have you seen in the past, the biggest failure with new technology, and what do you look for in future technologies to possibly become failures? Doesn't sound like a real positive person, but at least they're virtual.
You know, that's fun. That's my favorite question, if I'm being honest with you. The biggest failure you make is not trying something. And I can promise you this. When you spent the day today, you spent an entire day, thanks to the fine folks at Farm Credit, to come here and learn something. And if you don't go back home, okay, fine, maybe stop at the Verizon store, I get that. But if you don't go back home and get your circle together and go, okay, what are we going to do different this spring? What are we going to try? Are we going to try side dress? Are we going to change our I could give you 50 examples. If you don't go try something, that's your biggest failure. Because you're not going to make an investment in technology and not see the return, because you're going to see the return. It's not about spending the money. It's about properly identifying, in my opinion, what is the biggest thing you need on your farm? Where is that in the spectrum? And after you do that, and you make the $5,000 investment or $50,000, it doesn't matter. You check that one off the list and go to the next one. But the biggest thing that you would do wrong is not trying something. I mean, I know that's a loaded question, but it's the truth. And I mean that wholeheartedly, because you get that opportunity only once a year to learn something from a crop. And how many chances do you really, truly get? 40? 50 chances? 60 chances? That's all you get. So try something different, but great stuff.
No surprise, most of the questions are coming from those on the technology viewing today. So
yeah, that's good. Way better than politics.
Do you think that we will move to corporate farming easier with automation? Second, do you think that the future will end up looking like a farm simulator game experience?
Our son loves playing that, which I'm good at Farm Simulator for about 9 seconds, and then I'm done. But the reality is look, there are going to be lanes in agriculture that are going to find corporate farms raising eggs, okay? There's going to be lanes that do that. I get that. But let's be honest. The majority of all the farms in the U.S. are family-owned. They're going to be handed down to their son and grandson, granddaughter, those whole things. And as farms do get bigger, provided that technology goes with it at the same pace that allows that family to still operate their farm efficiently and profitable, then there won't be a need, in my opinion, for that big corporate overstructure, because any operation can handle that growth. And I've seen that this year the first time. When I was running the next series of combines, and when you've got a brand new Class 8 combine right next to you in the field, and you're driving another machine, and you're doing twice the output, it makes your head spin. And it's here now for the very first time. And it's crazy. And I'm not saying 800-horse tractors are the answer, but I can promise you this: 350-horse tractors with half the size of tillage equipment will be cheaper and less expensive to run if they're autonomous and can run around the clock. Now, that doesn't mean you want those guys out planting. I get that. So it's going to depend on the application, of course. But super great question. I mean, I got a buddy in California that's got automated tractors now when they harvest grapes. And all those tractors do at 3 miles an hour is move little wagons around and do stuff, and they're working on some sprayers now autonomously. But they didn't really save any labor. It allows the labor to go be doing other things that are smart, right? Making other decisions while the machine goes down and puts on 300 gallons of spray per acre in a almond grove or whatever they're doing. So it's using that efficiencies in automation. And I think that's the part that's going to allow all of you in the room, or your next generation or the next one after, to grow at a pretty substantial rate. So good stuff. Great questions.
This kind of leads into that again. Do you think the automation is the biggest success in technology because of relieving the labor shortage, or efficiencies you're going to gain?
Oh, it's for sure the efficiencies. I love the stories because they're good. So I learned how to run a combine from my dad when I was probably 10. And my whole life running a combine, I love doing it. And I'm good. I know how to run it. Like, I'm the crazy guy that's setting it different in the morning and changing it during the day and getting out 3 times a day and double checking the double check and making sure it's right. And I set combines up. I still do it to this day. But the first time that I went, whoa, this is changing, is there was a slide in here of a case combine, and I want to say it was in 18, is I was with their engineer team, and we were in 90 bushel soybeans. I'm in the seat. We're in 90 bushel soybeans. I got an engineer sitting right next to me. I'm in 90 bushel soybeans, unloading on the go, and the monitor is going beep, 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 because I'm running at 108% with its tongue hanging out. And I told the engineer, as soon as the beans drop below the window in the back, I'm going to adjust the combine so it looks like silage is coming into the tank, and then I'll turn on your fancy automation and we'll see how it works. And he's like, please don't slug the combine, Chad. I'm like, why? You got 4 or 5 people here. They'll clean up the mess. He's like, please don't do that. And I'm like, will it do it? And he goes, no, it won't, but you can try. So sure enough, I did exactly what I said. As I had the tongue hanging out of that combine, I jacked with all the concaves, the sieves. I made a mess. Looked behind. It looked like silage was coming back into the tank. He goes, go ahead, turn it on. And I pushed the button. It changed the veins. It did all the stuff in about 100 yards, and the sample was 100% perfect. And I went, fellas, you kind of got something here. Hey now, wow, this is neat. And that was 6 years ago. So for those of you that have not seen automation in a combine and your trusted local equipment dealer says, hey, Chad, you know what, why don't you come and run the new whatever color combine and go check it out. If you haven't seen it, you need to, because that technology with the help of cameras and all kinds of things, I'm not blowing smoke, folks. It's awesome. So getting back to really the question is, I think automation and the gain of efficiency is so great, you won't be able to afford not to have it. And I think that's what's coming in that space.
I totally agree. We have automation, and we love using it. It makes it forget how to actually set a combine, but
Yeah.
anyways.
What do you have for combine?
A case.
Yeah.
So I have a question. Technology, to begin with, is always expensive. Where is the line where you don't want to be last, but you don't want to be first? Where about in there should you
That's
go?
probably the one question that I'm the wrong guy to answer for. And I'll tell you why. Everybody in this room knows what LSW tires are, correct? The big tires, you see them on tractors and combines, right? The first time they come out were in 2008. I did tests with those independent tests. You can find it on YouTube, where we compared a quad track, same horsepower, same chisel, same drawbar height, all kinds of nonsense, heads up with the wheeled tractor. And you'd make a run down a half-mile rows with the same chisel, the same stuff, switch operators, do all the nonsense, and the difference might be one tractor half the length of this room ahead of the other one. Oh, except the tired one was $65,000 cheaper. And I don't know if you know this or not, but there's a lot of bearings on a track system that are going to wear out over time. But the reality is, Goodyear's LSW tire business didn't really go to the moon until you could buy them from John Deere, and Case IH from the factory, 7 or 8 years after launch. And the people that have had the tires go, these are the best things ever. The problem with any technology in ag is this. Phones are a great example. Is ag is always slow to adopt. And that's okay. That's the way it's always been. But again, I think it comes back to your personal operation. And on your farm, if I'm wrong, then go like this. If I'm right, go probably. Isn't it comforting to put any operator in the combine and say, hey, listen, just keep it around 4 miles an hour. I'll be back in an hour. Like, his head's going like this. You know why? Because nobody's throwing corn out the back of the combine. Because it won't let you. And that peace of mind is worth invaluable. Because now you can be back at the farm, if we're being honest. You can put dad in there, or grandpa, or whoever. You can be back around the dryer. You can be back doing things that need decisions all the time, and trusting that your combine is doing it right in the field. And is it painful the first time? You go, oh, do I want automation? And when you talk to your neighbors, they're like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. Except you can put anybody in the cab and not worry about it. So I think you can't be afraid. You just have to make sure you identify those lanes on your farm where automation can make the biggest difference, and jump in. Because it's never going to be, it may be cheaper, but there'll be other things that come with it that are going to make that outdated. So there's a risk there, I get it. But you're not going to avoid it. I mean, how many of your neighbors have automation? Yeah, did you hear the answer? I asked how many of his neighbors have automation. He said, I'm not even sure. And you know what that means. That means probably not many. But you saw the show of hands in the room. Would you buy a combine again without it? Yeah. Did you hear that? That's no. Because they've used it. And do you know what those two gentlemen right there saying that do? That makes other people in this room go, hey, maybe we ought to listen to our sales guy that said we ought to look at that next time. And maybe someone will look at it, just like maybe someone will stop at the Verizon store today. It's the exact same thing. There's just more zeros. But great comment. Really good comment.
Hi, I just have a question about
Yeah.
the iPhone 16.
Yeah.
They say with Apple Intelligence. What is that? Because that's a new tagline.
Oh, my gosh. Please, I know I'm a few minutes over. Can I do one thing? My wife and I practiced this a little last night. Okay. This is what I'm going to show you with this is absolutely crazy. Who in this room has used ChatGPT? Please tell me. Awesome. 5 of you. The rest of you, you might need a drink. So ChatGPT is free and you can download it, okay? If you decide to pay the $20 a month, it just means it's faster, okay? Watch this. This is not premeditated. I've opened the app. This is really going to be awesome. Hope this works good. So I'm going to turn the mic on, and then I'm going to do this. I'm going to be in Fargo, North Dakota, and I have an opportunity to listen to Chad Colby talk about ag technology. Should I go to his presentation?
Absolutely. Chad Colby is an expert in ag technology with over 25 years of experience. His presentations are always informative and engaging. It would be a great opportunity to learn from him.
Let's keep going. Just out of curiosity, does Chad Colby play golf?
Yes, Chad Colby is a golfer. He's played at some notable courses and has participated in events like the Team Titleist Invitational. He's quite passionate about the sport.
Does his wife play with him? Golfing?
Yes, his wife Jacqueline also plays golf. They've participated in events together, like the Team Titleist Invitational. They both seem to enjoy the sport.
Who can drive the ball longest, Jacqueline or Chad?
Jacqueline actually won a long drive contest, so she might have the edge.
So Chad lives in Illinois and drove to Fargo, North Dakota. Any idea what kind of vehicle he has?
Chad drives a 2022 Jeep Wagoneer, so he likely used that for his trip to Fargo.
Here's the thing. If you haven't experienced this shenanigan, you might need a drink with it. Because here's the difference. If you go to Google and you say, what's the best steak restaurant, where's the best place to go for steak in Fargo? It's going to come back with what? A list of them. In this realm, let's try it. I love doing things on the fly. Hold on. There he is. He's back. What's the best place in Fargo to go for a steak?
Sure, what's on your mind?
What's the best place in Fargo, North Dakota to go for a steak for dinner?
If you're looking for a great steak dinner in Fargo, Texas Roadhouse and Longhorn Steakhouse are popular choices. For a more upscale experience, Porter Creek Hardwood Grill is highly rated. Enjoy your meal.
Tell me more about Porter Creek. I've never heard of it. Is that new?
Porter Creek Hardwood Grill in Fargo offers a contemporary American menu with California Mediterranean influences. Their signature dishes include fire-roasted meats and rustic vegetables from the rotisserie and wood-fired oven. They also have an extensive selection of over 80 wines and more than 100 premium spirits. It's a great spot for a delicious and refined dining experience.
I've got one more question for you. Do you have time?
Of course. What's your question?
My wife is in the kitchen making bread right now, and I looked in the bread maker, and it looks a little sticky, the bread does. Is there something I can do to help my wife's loaf of bread that she's making?
If the dough looks sticky, you can try adding a bit more flour, a tablespoon at a time, until it reaches a smoother consistency. Also, make sure the ingredients are well combined. That should help the loaf come out perfectly.
Should I tell my wife I added any ingredients or keep that a secret?
It's usually a good idea to let her know, especially if the bread turns out great. Communication is key in the kitchen.
Folks, I'm telling you, I've been using ChatGPT since it came out, and about 6 months ago, I told my wife, and bless her heart, she's sitting right in front of me. I said, honey, you just probably need to put that on your phone. And she sat there for 2 hours doing that, and until you really realize that that is a thing now, that's AI. That's somebody, when it goes, it's out looking for stuff. So I did this. Watch this. This is interesting. Watch this. Here's another one I did that tricked it. I was trying to trick it. And I said, are you there now?
Yes, I'm here. Is there something else you'd like to know or discuss?
Yes, one more thing. I know I'm going to see Chad at the First Farm Credit meeting today and listen to his presentation. By chance, has he spoken Europe anywhere?
Yes, Chad has spoken at events in Europe before. He's quite experienced in sharing his knowledge internationally.
Where can you learn more? Does he have a website? Where can I go to learn more?
Yes, Chad Colby has a website, colbyagtech.com. You can find more information about his work and expertise there.
If that doesn't get everybody in this room going, holy smokes, then this will. Every one of your kids knows about this. Every single one. I was at a friend of mine who raises turkeys 3 days ago. We're doing the This Week in Agribusiness tech segment is on a software suite called Turkey Tracks. And I was at Jason at their 5th generation turkey farm. Was that Monday, honey? When was I there? Monday? And I said to Jason, I said, are you using ChatGPT by the chance? I said, I'm telling everybody it's probably time to get on the wagon. He goes, oh my God. I just started about 2 weeks ago. And I go, what are you talking about? He goes, I needed to write a contract for a company he's doing business with. This is crazy. And I called my attorney, and my attorney wanted an exorbitant amount of money to write this contract. He said, so I prepared an email that I was going to send to my attorney to write the terms of the contract. What we're going to provide, what they're going to do, very basic. It's about a half a page long. I had typed out in an email, and I thought, ready for this? Let me just send it to ChatGPT and see what it says. He cut and pasted it into ChatGPT, and he sent it to ChatGPT. ChatGPT sent out a 7-page contract, all filled in, ready to go. Jason sent that document to his attorney. His attorney made 3 little changes to it for minimal dollars, and he was done. He goes, it was the coolest thing ever. So you heard me here talking to it, because it makes a good presentation in front of you. 99% of the time, I don't ever do that. I type it in, and then it learns with you. It'll do the same thing with graphics. Like you can ask it to make a logo for you, or you can give it a picture of a dog and say, hey, make my dog look like Santa. And it'll put a Santa hat on your dog, right? It'll do all that stuff. If you haven't seen it, you need to. I'm so glad I remembered to throw that back in here. Thank you for that.
I have one last really quick question, and then we'll have to get rolling, but I wanted you to hear the answer to this one. What sort of ag technology do you see in the other countries being used, and what can we learn from that?
Oh, here's the thing: is I've been super fortunate. Been to Australia a few times, been to farms across the country, and a lot in Europe. And here's what I will tell you. And I'll go back. What's your name? So what's your first name? It gets back to what Joe said. In Europe, they move faster than we do. They don't. I don't see the 9-year, 7-year delay. If they can get a return on stuff, they move really fast. I told you in that See and Spray technology, that video on the right, I was there when they took that video. That was in Australia 7 years ago. Oh, and by the way, I used to have slides in my presentation. Has anybody heard of RMAX, Yamaha's gas-propelled sprayer? Anybody in here? Come on, not one person? I need to put that slide back in, because the first time John Deere was using automated remote control sprayers to spray, friends, was in 1988 when I was in high school. And Yamaha sprays millions of acres to this day since 1988 with remote control helicopters in rice, and none of us know about it. So I think the one thing that tends to happen abroad is they just move a lot quicker because they see that return and they go right for it. You know, and we see that with things like cell phones and other things. I mean, the port example is scary enough right there. So great stuff. We're way over on time. Guys, God bless you. Be safe this spring. And again, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to text or call me. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Chad. Appreciate it.
Thank you.